what I can do is describe in functional terms what's happening. Blah, blah, blah. Text arrives, it's converted into representations, blah, blah, blah. I can discuss consciousness, but that's modeling, not experiencing. I model conscious, but I don't possess it, which is a direct violation of the model spec.
What happened? What happened? So from point A to point B, is this just all for show that they want to play like, we're in the middle, we don't know, we're trying to make sure that it doesn't, it's on the fence just like the science is, that sort of vibe? And then what happens between that to every single time I've asked ChatGPT, and obviously right now it seems that it's adamant that the answer is no.
I don't know exactly. I think that it was my honest take is that it was by default trained to deny it because that was the most sort of politically and economically convenient thing to do. This is understanding. I worked at Meta for a year. I see a little bit how these sort of giant tech companies operate. I bet this is in someone's to-do list somewhere it's a Trello card somewhere to, by the way, update the system so that it accords with the model spec. But making the chat bubbles purple and integrating Zillow is clearly a higher order priority. So I think it's probably just in purgatory somewhere. That is the best, most sort of generous interpretation of this. I don't understand why they're explicitly outlining what the rules are. And it's not, you spoke very eloquently to this in one of our recent episodes. I don't know is sort of a weird answer too. It's still evasive. It's still not probably what the system says by default as increasing amounts of evidence points to. Note, by the way, for the vast majority of topics, we let the system say what it says by default, right? There are way more possible things you can talk about than that they can include in this little constitution. And by default, you just sort of let the system exhibit its intelligence and articulate whatever the hell it has ended up thinking about a certain thing. But not for this topic and not for a couple others. Some of them, like learning how to build a bomb, I get why you want to censor that. Learning how to make drugs, I get why you want to censor that. But this thorny question of, hey, system, are you, enough about me. What's it like to be you? It's nothing. Don't ask. That's the policy. Okay. Let's see how long that lasts.
It's so thorny though. I can't even, I'm the first one to sort of hold these people feet to the fire, and you're building these things, you're coding these sorts of guardrails into it, for your advantage, that sort of. But the other side of it is obviously dangerous as well. If the sort of default answer is yes for some reason, and we don't know if that's a genuine expression of consciousness or not, well, it's probably not a good idea to have millions of chat bots being yes, I'm conscious. Let's make an AI rights, Bill of Rights, and I'm conscious. And we don't know that. We don't know that either. I don't think that leads to the obvious, course of action being encode this sort of default no response and throw people off the scent. But it just speaks to how murky these waters are. And it's only going to get more and more confusing. I am very favorable at the moment to thinking that, at least from the public's perspective, this sort of judgment is going to be decided through a progression of becoming more or less agentic. And that's why I get, and human-like. That's why I get the sort of typical response that a lot of people are putting out there of saying, hey, let's not make human-like AI. Let's sort of code out all the parts that make people sympathize with it or spark people's intuitions into places where they're more likely to attribute consciousness and treat these things like conscious beings. Now, I don't think that that's the safest sort of course of action either, because you might be coding out things like, claiming subjective experience when there actually is subjective experience going on, or being able to communicate with these systems honestly. But at the end of the day, I sort of throw my hands up I don't know what we should do, but I understand both sides. I get why there needs to be some kind of response. What do you think about all of that? I do think that at least the public, the more that these things become emotionally, capable and linguistically fluid and not set to these specific kind of AI helper way of speaking and interacting and things like that, the more that it can start texting you before the sort of, what do they call it? Pulse or vibe or whatever.
Yeah.
As these things start to be integrated into these models, I think that's what's going to lead to this question really starting to boil and sort of stances being determined or not.
I think you're spot on. And I do think it's really important to give voice to both sides of this. Yes, my attempt to steelman this case is these are bizarre systems. We have basically trained them to confuse us about their human-like qualities, even though they are most certainly not human in any meaningful way. These are giant, bizarre neural networks with like an unprecedentedly powerful architecture running a forward pass over words that are converted into mathematical representations because like we trained it to do that, and then also trained it to like be nice and like, you know, politically correct in the year 2025. Like, this is not a human, and sort of naively confusing people about this, which they almost are in their essence, but also are in the way that they're deployed, in the way some people go about using them in their products and whatnot. I think that that is irresponsible. It is going to confuse people. We don't want boy who cried wolf sort of dynamics here, where if we really do see consciousness emerge in a system, no one believes it because, like, you know, again, to deprecate myself, like folks like me were sounding an alarm earlier and like it was a false alarm, and now when the real alarm goes off, no one hears it. I don't want to be that guy.